Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Brewton, and I am here with Leigh Cantrell on today's ACA Way Town Hall Medicare Agents Under Fire. Thank you for attending. I'm seeing everybody as they are loading in. For those who do not know me, my name is Amanda Brewton. I am the owner of Medicare Answers Now and the founding chair of Trusted Healthcare Alliance. I will be speaking at ACA Way in September. And if you are not familiar, you definitely want to follow them on social media, both LinkedIn and Facebook. Um, Before we get started, I do want to invite you to ACA Way, which is September 23rd to the 24th in downtown Miami. This event brings together agents, brokers, carriers, CMS officials, compliance leaders, AI innovators, and health decision makers to discuss what's next in Medicare, ACA, carrier rollouts, business strategy, and healthcare technology. ACA is also is proud to sponsor or is proud to support All Secure Foundation, which helps special operations veterans and their families heal from invisible wounds of service. Again, for those that just joined, thank you for attending today's town hall. I'm here with Leigh Cantrell. Leigh, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? This is the first time that you and I've been talking, so it's great to be on a panel with you.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too, Amanda. It was funny in our pre-call. They were like, "I'm sure y'all are best friends." And we're like, "Well, we actually
No?
have never met each other." But I do follow along with you, Amanda, and you always have great information. So, a little bit about me. I've been in the business for about 20 years, and I always joke that I've had, I think, literally every role from LOA agent up to CGO of a carrier. So I have seen the business from almost every perspective. I worked at three different carriers, again, had different roles there from broker manager all the way up to the executive level. And last year, my husband and I made the decision that we were going to launch comprehensive care insurance, which is CCI. We're out of Atlanta. And one of the things that I really saw along my journey is agents needed more support and they needed more transparency into the business and really understanding the business. And so that's kind of our foundation. So we launched last June 30th, I think was my last paycheck in the carrier world. And it has been awesome. We have been so busy working with agents and really growing our agency and FMO. And so it's really fun to be back on the outside a little bit. And frankly, I think this side's way more fun than the carrier side. So I'm excited about the conversation today. I know a lot of agents are super eager to hear about the changes and what's kind of in it for them, right? And I think that's what we're going to be jumping into here.
Mhm. Yeah, I can't believe that I left in 19 and went out on my own. And I would say the first year it was like, oh my God, don't know, like, am I really doing this? Oh God, this is so different than corporate world. But then went out on my own. And it's like, okay, best decision I made. And now I don't have to ask permission. I just go ahead and do it. And then everybody tells me I'm crazy anyway. So it works. Except I don't have to worry about it. I answer to myself.
Yeah, I made a
So,
post the other day that was like, I only have to take into consideration my opinions, and it turns out I have a lot of opinions. So
right,
it works out
right.
well.
The only thing that I do notice is that with others that as I'm mentoring and developing other agents and things, one of the biggest things that I see with culturally is the buck stops with you. The responsibility starts and stops with you. So
Right.
if you're not willing to go ahead and say, you know what, I made a mistake here, let me correct it, or you know what, I dropped the ball here, I got to do better next time. And that's one of those things where people want to go, you want to point the finger at other people, and that becomes very easy in corporate world to be able to do. But you can't do that when you own the business. You
Right.
are the person
You
that they're
are.
pointing to.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure.
I
So,
think my half of my employees, the first time that I said I was wrong and I did like individually at each one of them, they're like, she actually admitted that she's wrong. Yeah, I do. I make mistakes just like everybody else.
That is signs of a good leader, Amanda. Signs of a good leader.
You gotta check you just you gotta check it. It's just that, it just is. So for those of you that are out there and that are listening, definitely sit back and take a look at that. And it is a little squirrel moment. But today we are talking about 27 getting ready for AEP and the CMS changes. What happened with the final rule? We've got some pretty good changes that we started talking about, God, some of these 3, 4, 5 years ago, that are now finally coming into play and now becoming something that we are actually able to make our lives a little bit easier on. And they're good things, which is great. The first one that I want to talk about is the scope of appointment, the bane of everybody's existence that, why should somebody have to wait the 48 hours and what is that? What's the rhyme and reason for it? So, Leah, do you want to go ahead and talk about what the upcoming changes are coming on that?
Yes, and you stole my line, bane of our existence, right? Like when you have to explain to someone, I know you really want to meet right now or talk to me today, but let me
Yeah.
go ahead and send you this, right? So scope of appointment, great news for agents. Going into 27, no more 48-hour rule, right? You just have to get that scope of appointment prior to talking about benefits and starting the appointment. So that is a huge shift. Just in the last couple of years, I mean, if you've been in this industry a long time, right? You know the shifts and the pendulum swings we've seen, and that's why we always know that the sky is not falling because it always kind of comes back around. What is old is new again. So no more 48-hour documentation for sure is still required. Um, and I really think this is a good move forward for agents that are truly trying to do the right thing by members. I know since I've been back in the field and selling, people call me all the time and they want to jump right in and they're like, "Can you go ahead and do this today?" And I'm like, "Well, let me send you this because I'm meeting them in person, right? Sometimes at a coffee shop or whatever." I'm like, "Let's do the 48 hours." So I'm so excited that that is off the table now.
Hmm.
One of the things you actually brought up a couple, I think, like little known facts I
Yeah.
wasn't even aware that I think one of them has changed about when you can get those scope of appointments and how long they're good for. So why don't you take that?
So, and it's funny because the mystery person is answering some of these questions in the Q&A and they're teed up as questions that I'm going to answer. So they're jumping me to the gun. But with the question is, with the changes in the scope of appointment, and everybody has been asking this for, since the final rule came out. Initially, the final rule was written in that the scope of appointment is only good for the plan year, which theoretically meant that the 2027 scopes, you could not start to pick those up until October 1. The answer, though, has been since clarified, and CMS came back and said, no, 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 we didn't mean that. Instead, it is good for the full 12 months, regardless of the plan year. So if you do have a scope, you can start collecting them this summer, and they will be good through AEP. That is not a problem. So Ruth Ann, I believe that just answered your question. So yes, you can send them in your letters that go out, or use your Retire Flow links or whatever other link that you're using to collect doctors and drugs and all of the other fun stuff. But that was a change. And for those of you that are doing things and multitasking and are half-ass listening, again, I will repeat it. But this is your Listen Linda moment. Please listen now, tune in. Um, with scope of appointments, the 48-hour rule is no longer there. The scope of appointment is change has been clarified by CMS that it can be within 12 months. So you don't have to wait until October 1st to pick up your new scope for AEP. You can start collecting those this summer for getting ready to set your appointments for AEP. The other thing that happened with the scope of appointments is that you can use one. So if you have a husband and wife that you're meeting with at the same time, you can use one scope for both of them. As long as it talks about the products that you are going to be talking about in that meeting, then you're good to go. The other thing is that if you are taking a meeting in person, then it needs a paper app if or paper scope. If you are doing a telephonic video online type of discussion, those you need to have, you can send an electronic or you could do a telephonic scope in that respect also. You can still use paper if you want, but you have more flexibility on that. Last but not least, what can be construed as a scope of appointment is changing as well. So this is where it is paramount that when you start working with a prospect and they call you, you want to denote how did they hear about you? You also want to go ahead and if you are doing the outreach, you have to show how you obtain that lead. So what permission to contact or business reply card that you have, a voicemail saying, "Hey, call me back." Anything like that, you want to keep as record in your CRM so that that way you have that full chain of where those leads are coming from when you start the sales conversation with them. So, um,
So I have a feeling this is going to be a question. What
mhm,
you just mentioned about like if you're in person, so say somebody, they ask the question, can I start sending out scopes in August? A lot of us use, right, digital scopes. But then I go and meet with a person in person. Is that digital scope still good then if they're saying it's only paper?
it
Oh, stumped you.
I no, I was going to say, repeat the question again. I want to make sure that I
Okay,
heard it
so
correctly.
so the original statement was if it's in person, it needs to be a paper scope.
Yeah.
But if you are doing all your prep work, right, and you're using your Sunfire Blaze Link, whatever you use, um, and that is now a digital version, right, of your scope of appointment because they've already signed it through your intake process.
If the
And
digital version is a PDF, when it spits it out and it looks like that, then it's fine
it would be
because it's the version that when you supply the carrier with the compliance CTM information going, okay, we need to know soup to nuts what just happened with this, why did you call them? How did you get a hold of them? And all of that, you want to have that PDF in there that's going with it.
yeah, great, great.
And Billy's question is for the remainder of 26, T65 prior to 27, do we need to follow the 48-hour rule? And that answer is after October 1, Billy, you are good to go. Everything flicks on that point.
Yeah.
So, but that is a good question. Anybody else have any other questions regarding scope of appointment stuff before we switch to something else?
Well, the only a couple things I love that it's only one like for a household, for like a husband and wife, because I know I had some frustrated husband and wives like, can we just send you one of these? Do we really have to have two? So I think that's a great change. And so many of these, honestly, I view as like such positive changes for agents. Can you tell us like a little bit, how did some of those changes, and we're going to talk about more positive changes, but like how did they really come to be? Did they read our minds or what happened?
So the
Translation.
scope of appointment ping pong, if you will, about yes, you need one, no, you don't, 48-hour rule versus not. A lot of that has been going back and forth, but back last July, I believe it was last July, that there was what's referred to as an RFI or a request for information that was put out. And it basically said, if you go ahead and you could get rid of dumb things that CMS does. What would you do? What are your top five? And they requested the information, and then we turned around, and the top five were, of course, call recording, TPMO disclaimer, scope of appointment. Those were really big, hot topics. And believe it or not, CMS went ahead and heard because NABIP, NAFA, and HAFA, which are the three public or the professional organizations that advocate for us, went and said, you know what, here's some things that make absolutely no sense. And as luck would have it, come this past fall, a lot of that was included in up for debate for the final rule that was determined in April. So that is advocacy at its finest. Some will say, you know, it took forever for some of that to go ahead and actually be done, but nothing quick ever happens at with the government ever. Um, so it's a good thing. It just took a long time for that to happen. We do have a couple of questions. The first one, please clarify, did the format of the scope of appointment change? Um, to include a space to document how did you obtain the lead. You can actually use an online form, a business reply card, a consent to contact. So technically, it did change from the single form that everybody was really using. And I would add, how did you obtain that as part of what you are documenting when you are working with a prospect, so that way you can see where that is. The other thing that I will tell you is that there still is not any ramifications to a lead company, that if you buy leads, that lead company does not have anything, like they have no ramifications for selling you crap. So if all they're going to do is they're going to lie to you, tell you that they're compliant, and then they're going to sell you bad leads. And when you get the compliance and say, how did I buy this? If you say, hi, I bought it from Joe Company, and you can't show the actual compliant way that that lien was obtained, that is on the agent, which is a very big issue right now that we're trying to deal with in lead land. Um, but for every agent out there, please make sure that you are using reputable companies for leads, and have them vetted. And that does not mean that you ask them, hey, are you compliant? You ask them, guess what? They're going to lie to you. They want to take your money. So instead, go to your FMO, go to your compliance officer, and find out who they use that they vetted, that they know is reputable, and use those companies. Because there's quite a few out there that I will tell you one. He got one of my agents for almost $9,000. And what it was is that he was buying Facebook leads, and they were the Facebook leads that were not for Medicare. They were for ACA, and they said, get $6,000 worth of free stuff. You can't use this. And it was non-compliant. And he goes, but the guy told me it was compliant. I said, of course he did. He wanted the $9,000. Who wouldn't? And he went back, he yelled at them, and then they gave him non-compliant stuff the second time. So after he came back the second time, and I said, no, these are still non-compliant. You cannot use these. And oh, by the way, you're out the money. He's like, yeah, I won't ever use anybody that you tell me again. But it is something that you want to be careful of.
And that's a
Um,
great point, Amanda, is like that is part of why you have an FMO. That's part
mhm.
of why you're within an organization that you trust, is
Yep.
because they should be vetting those things. A lot of agents, especially since I've left the carrier world, I've talked to a lot of agents who are like, I just want to go direct. And I'm like, but if you go direct, you don't have somebody looking out for you.
Yes.
And good FMO should be looking out for you, right? And
Yep.
if you don't have that communication, that's a whole nother issue, but they are able to supply those that
Mhm.
have been vetted, and that's so important. And so listen to them. Don't waste the
Which goes right
$9,000.
into one of the questions, which was, well, are FMO leads legit? And that answer is yes. So those you can use, because the FMO does not want to be on the hook saying, hey, I gave you bad non-compliant things. So they will do their due diligence. Every FMO is required to have a compliance officer as part of their team. I am a compliance officer and have been for years. So I have three companies right now that I recommend just because, and several of them, they're in the thick of the ins and outs with the policy stuff, and I know them well, so I know that They're not going to do the smile and dial auto dialer mess stuff that we have going on. Flipping back into the SOAs, a hot question. Do they both need to sign the scope of appointment? I would get them both to sign it, yes. Whitney and Tim, that answers that question for both of you. What will happen when a person takes them more than 48 hours to sign? They'll turn into a pumpkin, maybe. I don't know. Sing a song, do a little dance, do the hokey pokey. Um, but no, really, you can go ahead and you can use the scope as long as it's signed and it's within the 24 within the 12 months, you can use it. Then you can use it until the point in time that the application is sold. So after you place an application, if they come back and change your mind, one, you got to go look at how you communicate and for them to change their mind because clearly they didn't get what it was that you were talking about or something's not right. And secondly, then you need a new scope for the new sales conversation that you have with the new one. Um, yep, that
One of
answered
them,
all of the questions.
yeah. One of them is, do you need scopes for 10 years?
So you need to save all of your documentation for 10 years. So that is something that you have to do. The only thing right now that is changing, which we're going to go out of order, is call recording. So on the call recording, initially when they brought that out in 22, they didn't realize that it has to follow the rules just like everything else did, which was that it was call recording was required for 10 years. It wasn't until this final rule that we got it to be knocked down to 6 years, but the first 3 years can be audio. And then the next 3 years, so years 4, 5, and 6, can be a transcript. But you do want to go ahead and hold your recordings and all of your documentation so that that way it's there. What happens if the person passes away? Do you still keep it? Yep, keep it for the 10 years. Um, in the case of the T65 locator, that is an FMO supported tool, so yeah, it's compliant. Did you hear anything about insurance carriers paying agents nothing for their non-commissionable plans? No, I haven't heard that at all. Not for the last 3 years. No. Sorry for the smartass comment, but yes, I've heard about it. Yes, it's been something that we've been advocating on very, very strongly. When it goes ahead and you are so there's a couple of things here. The first one is that outside of one company that entertained going ahead and killing renewals and then immediately reversed that idea, all of your renewals are still payable. So prior to anything that you have put on a new plan or switch somebody. Now, the plans that have gone ahead and switched in the middle of AEP and all of that, there is a push right now so that once the plans are approved by CMS, we want the CMS to say, once your plans are approved, you can't change anything. You can't change the benefits. You can't change how they are being paid either. This is not okay. So what ended up going ahead and doing that is that takes an act of Congress. So, and it's going to take us a minute to go ahead and actually get that in play. But what is happening is if you saw the release in June about what the new commission levels were, everybody was excited because, ooh, everybody got a raise, right? But what they missed is on page 2 of that document, CMS came out and said, hey, Mr. Carrier, wait a minute here. We want you to tell us if you're paying, what you're paying, how you're paying, and when you're paying. So that way so CMS is now going to start tracking that. So that's the first piece of the puzzle, which that's great. It took us 2 years to actually get visibility on that. But then the one further. Everybody's been up in arms about the congressman from New York, um, who she wanted to put limits on commissions, and she bashed pretty good what agents are and what they do and how they do it. And it's actually why I'm flying to DC tomorrow to do a briefing on what we do and how we do it. But what ends up happening is that we all called her out and said, no, 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 you have bad information with this. One, it's shocking how many people still think that a plan change is treated as a new commission. And many of us know that it's been over 15 years since that was the case. Tell that to the legislators and the media. They still don't understand that. So that's one of the things that we're trying to fix. But her initial bill that she introduced, she changed it. And when she changed it, it now says that what she wants to have happen, which is what we want. We want the carrier to say, hey, this is what we're paying, this is who we're paying, how we're paying, and everything else. So she's actually trying to put into law so that there isn't the range that we've been fighting against that goes zero to fair market value. She wants it spelled out. Those are the things that it's taken a lot of effort to make happen, but it is in play. So, Tommy, I hope that that helps.
Well, and one thing I would add to Amanda, and maybe we differ on perspective on this one, but it's one of those cases, be careful what you wish for. It's kind of like the IRA. It was like, oh, the donut hole's closed. Yay! Everyone's jumping for joy. And then what
Mhm.
have we seen? We've seen PDPs implode. We've seen
Yep.
costs go crazy, right? So one thing that started off as a great thing, everyone was so excited about, can really damage the industry. And
Mhm.
so one of the things when carriers are going to get pulled back, if they get pulled back on non-commissionable plans, it can also make them, especially your real conservative carriers, be skittish on rolling out plans and staying
Mhm.
in the market. So it's a
The
real
whole
fine.
market's having a new level set when it comes to, and it's been happening for the last few, and candidly, it's a direct result of IRA. The reason why the non-commissionable plans and how all of this stuff, it's a mix of a couple of things, but the biggest factor of that is the Inflation Reduction Act,
100%.
because all of the Advantage plans have their highest end formulary on it, and the fad of the semi-glutides, because I'll call it what it is currently, because everybody wants in on them. Look at the the GLP-1 bridge.
Right.
When you look at that, when it initially came out the first year, there was a $14 billion price tag to that. Well, if carriers got to go ahead and cover that, plus they've got everybody that was on an under 65 plan and going, oh, well, I'm just going to wait to have my knee replacement, my hip replacement until I get on Medicare, because instead of now paying $3,000 for it, now I only have to pay $250. You have that uptick happening. And then add into it the mess with stars ratings and all of these other things, you have what's referred to as a headwind, which is a classic carrier term, right? But, headwinds are where there's negative things that you're going against in order to place business and sell things and to make things happen. Well, all of these headwinds created a significant issue, as we saw. Now, at the same time that that was all happening, you actually had carriers that were gaming the system. So, what they would do is they would say, oh, well, I want X, I want market share. And they would lowball their formularies and their plans to be able to go ahead and do that. And then they get all the market share that they want, and then they turn off the tap by turning off their commissions. That was the game that they were playing. And we know this, and I can say this because I had a conversation with one of the carrier executives who told me this while I was sitting waiting to board a boat in New York last year. He's no longer there, but it still happened. What ends up happening with that is that we started cataloging all of the plans that went ahead and went non-commissionable. And the domino effect of when one did it, then these other ones in that market did it, and then it just became this trickle-down effect. As Samantha George referred to it, it's proverbial hot potato. I don't want that
Right.
business. No, I don't want that
Right.
business. I don't want it. All of a sudden, it's going to go splat on the floor, i.e., Minnesota, Connecticut. All of the Vermont was another one where the markets just absolutely tanked. So, with all of those issues, it's one that it's starting to reset. But yes, I think the next couple of years we're going to see some benefit changes. The industry as a whole, with the amount of beneficiaries that are becoming eligible and those that are still staying alive. So you have all of these people on Medicare. It couldn't sustain itself as it is, and it still can't. So they have to figure out a way to go ahead and be able to adjust that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
for sure. I think that could be like a whole nother town hall is like, how
right.
carriers do that? And it's interesting. I always see agents like, well, why don't they just fix their plans? Well, they're entering their plans in April. They have 3 months of actuary. Most of them don't have good data.
Mhm.
And so they're kind of guessing at where this plan's going to hit. And when they finally file it, they don't know what everybody else has done. So if they're like
Right.
way out of position, and I'm not here to protect the
Yeah.
carrier. I have plenty of
No.
issues too. But that would be, I think, a great, maybe we could do that together next.
Right. It is interesting to see how the carriers build their plans and how it's all filed and all of that. I was blessed to be able to have some mentors that taught me how that works. And that has definitely been something that has been helpful throughout my career with and also educating other agents so that way they're like, okay, well, this kind of makes sense. Um, but flipping into a couple more of these questions because we squirreled, but not in a bad way. Rick, digital scope, okay to keep? Yep, you can keep your digital. You don't have to keep the paper. That's fine. Um, which freaking carrier was entertaining not paying renewal commissions? It was one out of Maryland, but they backtracked, so it really doesn't matter. So we're okay as far as that. In regard to the new rule of saving recorded calls for 6 years, three audio and three transcript, is that as of now forward or will it go retro? It will go retro. So you can start going ahead and pulling your transcripts, and that is not going to be an issue. Um, I heard one of the big carriers to pay agents more is to get rid of extra benefits such as OTC. Okay, so let's talk about OTC and all the extra flex benefits and everything else like robotic dogs and cell phone coverage and mortgage and utility and pest control and the kitchen sink and your golf clubs and all of that. So there were quite a few carriers, in 2019 is when they changed the definition of what a supplemental benefit was. And it took a couple of years before that became the new bright and shiny object that everybody started selling on because all the base benefits for somebody's advantage plans were pretty identical, maybe $5 here, $5 there, that was different. So these extra benefits became the flashy thing to sell on. And then not so much. A couple of years ago, Aetna came out with their $600 benefit and positioned it and said, hey, go sell these plans and tell them that they can go buy their golf clubs or go get their tennis shoes or whatever that was. And they had a ton of sales with that, but they lost a ton of money with it. It also caught the attention of regulators, and they went, this is not as we intended. This is now getting completely out of hand with what we had intended this for. So then you started to see a rash of regulation that came through that said that these are only supposed to be used for those that have chronic conditions. And the thing that most agents don't understand is that the carrier can choose which chronic conditions they want to recognize. That varies by carrier, guys. So even though you pull a list off of CMS and there's, 50 some odd chronics that are on it, that carrier may only recognize 12 of them. And that's it. So you have to look at what the carrier recognizes as the chronic, and then if that chronic will allow them to get those benefits. And then the regulations regarding proving that they have the chronic has now gotten more stringent. So now you have to have the doctor's note, where before it was, oh, just fill out the form, the carrier will contact the doctor, and then we'll go backwards to get it. Now it's a no, 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 no. You got to go get the information from your doctor if you really want this. So the whole process has changed to that as well. Do you have anything to add on the Fed
On
and
the
flex benefits?
Yeah. Well, I think, again, just like everything, right? It starts off with a noble purpose, right? It's like, you know what? We need to make sure people have healthy food to eat. That sounds like a great benefit to sell, and it sounds like a great thing to provide. But I know this was a couple years ago, the carrier I was at, we entered the South Florida market and we had a lot of parameters over what you could use the healthy food card for,
Mhm.
right? And it was for healthy food. And we got so many complaints from that market because their clients were going and trying to buy all the pastries and all the sweets and all the chips and everything that another carrier was letting them buy with their healthy food card, right? And that,
Oh, I heard people going ahead and say, and they would use it for parties that they were having.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they'd go buy, they couldn't buy the wine, but they'd buy like the steaks and the different things. And
sure.
which some people are going, okay, but how much can you buy for a $30 grocery card? Depending on your market, and here's where people get pigeonholed. Depending on your market, those cards could get way up there in money
Yeah,
and
they
it
can be
rolls.
huge.
So
And
they'd save it.
so all that is changing, right? Like they're shutting down.
Mhm.
Yeah, you are no longer the party host off your Flex card.
Yes.
So that's good. And really the way it has to be explained is like I think people got used to. It's almost like you get a $2,000 gift card. No, 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 no. It's not that. It is
Mhm.
really truly, and all those benefits, even like the cell phone benefit you mentioned that's come out, like they have to be able to prove this is going back and helping the health
Mhm.
of this person, right? So, good points there.
So let's talk about disclaimers because that one's also everybody's favorite thing to talk about. So the first one is that you have to use the disclaimer as the government says. You can't rewrite it because you don't like how it sounds or you want to make it yourself. You want to make it on your own. I can't tell you how many people that I see that do that. I also see people who do not go ahead and put it in your email signature. You've got to put it in there. You've also got to go ahead and put it on your website. You've got to go ahead and it needs to have those, you need to have it in there and it needs to be exactly as it's written. Now, the upside to this is that they are removing the ships reference to the disclaimer. So the disclaimer now is just to push them to 800 Medicare or Medicare.gov um, on the disclaimer versus adding ships to that. So that was also a win. And then the other big change is that when you say it, which you can talk about that in a second, but many people have asked, well, how do I figure out how many organizations that I sell in and how do I go ahead and know how many plans there are? And I sell in 20 states. So do I have to do a disclaimer for every single one of these? How is this supposed to work? So my answer is this. I would recommend that you do your disclaimer. You go into your quoting and enrollment tools. When you go in to run a quote, it's going to say this is how many plans that you offer and how many organizations. That's what you're going to use. If you sell in a state, take major cities in your state, run zip codes take a zip code from each of those, and then see if any of those numbers change. Add them all together, and that's your total. You can do it that way. You can wait until the CMS landscape files come out, which comes out usually around the October 15th, and you can manually pull it from there and do a copy paste sort and then pull it. And then which one do you use? You use the disclaimer that's applicable to the client. So if a client calls you and they're in Florida and you're in Alabama, you're going to, when you talk to them and you start your sales conversation, you will read them the disclaimer that is applicable to their state. So if you've got 5 companies that you rep and they only do 10 plans, then that's what you're going to tell them versus the state that you're in, like mine, for example. I have 15 companies and I represent 90 some odd plans. It's going to shift depending on who I'm talking to. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, that gets kind of complex. I get it. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, that's a good way to, check it out. So I like that. And I know one of the questions that came up, yes, ship can be removed. Now, when is that? Is that October 1st or is that now?
October 1.
That's okay. October 1st. So October 1st, we can all change that. And I'm with you, Amanda. Like the amount of agents I see that don't have that disclaimer on their email, like that's the easiest thing you can do, right? Is put it on your email signature. So I
Hmm.
highly recommend that. The timing, right, of it, that's huge because you had to do it in a minute before. So it's basically like, hi, this is Leigh. Let me read you a disclaimer real quick. And now
Right.
it can be a little bit more of a natural flow into before you start talking about benefits. But when agents start asking me like, well, when should I use the disclaimer? Like whether it's on social media or whatever, I'm like, just put it there. Like that's probably the easiest thing we can do. Just put it there. It's always better to be safe than sorry about that. There was one other, oh, I wanted to ask you a question
Sure.
because this is something that actually we do, and I've heard some other agents do. So it's pre-recorded prior to us picking up the phone.
Mhm.
Is that compliant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good to
Because it triggers as somebody's answering the phone. It may not be you answering, and ours is set up the same way. So with through the Zoom system, you can do the recording, and then as part of it, it's we will transfer you to somebody now. And then, but I can hear it as it's playing as we're talking it through. So it is compliant. You can leave it alone as it is, or you can shift so that you're only saying it as needed. My concern with doing it, if you shift to the as needed, what happens when you forget and you get engrossed in the conversation? And
right.
then it's oh, well, wait a minute, what's going to happen? And there's quite a few people that go ahead and that they're like, oh, well, nobody's ever going to catch me with this. Um, Carriers catch people doing this every day. I have
Right.
agents panicked every day that are going and saying, I don't have this. Well, guess what? Now we have a problem.
Yeah.
So,
And that kind of goes into even another topic we were going to get into about recordings, right? And how long you need to keep them. And so
yep.
many agents do, they view that as like a hurdle. But what we were talking about earlier is that can be, that can save your bacon, basically. So, I don't care how good of an agent you are, how many I's you dot, T's you cross, you can get a complaint to Medicare very easily.
Mhm.
Somebody woke up, their doctor went out of network, they talked to their friend, they said, oh, you just complain, tell them you never meant to enroll in that plan, and all of a sudden you have a complaint against you. I
Mhm.
loved it being on the carrier side when it was a complaint would come in and we'd have to go to the agent and say, hey, can you give us your documentation? And they say, sure, because they're this person saying you never even met with them.
Right.
And they're like, here's my recording. Here you go. And it's like, case closed, done. It's the easiest thing, right? Now, when it's like, well, it was in person and I'm missing my scope of appointment and all these different things, it's really hard to see it any other way than you're guilty at that
Yeah.
point. So it can be such a protection for agents. And yeah, carriers do look at that stuff, especially if you get complaints and rapid disenrollments and all those things.
Mhm.
You need to have what they're asking you for.
Document, document, and document. And yes, you don't want to be the bad kid because it's just not worth it. So the next question, which I hear and see this one a lot. How is it that big marketing organizations who advertise on TV can continue to advertise free money cards? Independent agents are diligent when marketing and serving their other markets, yet the big organizations seemingly go untouched. So I promise I did not pay her to ask that question, but now you guys are going to get my 2 cents on this. Everybody loves to point a finger. Everybody loves to point a finger. It's not them, it's not me, it's the bad actor. It's the other person that's a crappy agent. It's so and so. I've had 3 of them so far in the Q&A calling out various entities for non-compliant issue. Here's the thing, and I say this with due respect. Stop it. Doesn't help. Does not help. What helps is raising this bar, setting the standard by going ahead and going, this is how we do it. This is how it should be done. You see something that's non-compliant, turn it in. If you go ahead, turn it into your carrier, have somebody go ahead and take a look at it. Just because it is not enforced or somebody gets spanked at the minute that you feel that they should be spanked does not mean that that is not happening. What it means is that there's an investigation that starts, and that can take a long time to end up happening. Some of this stuff has made it all the way up to CMS and to Capitol Hill. I have seen pictures of non-compliant stuff that the NAIC has requested from 10 different states, and that has made it all over the news. It has gone all sorts of different places. So the ramifications do come, the changes do come. But pointing the finger does nothing. Pointing the finger doesn't do anything other than say, you know what? Here's one more example about how we're bad. And the reality is, the government and the media already think that we as agents are bad people. And I don't understand why people are not hearing me with that. The preconceived notion that of the industry is that we are all shady and trying to screw grandma, and that we are looking to go ahead and put her out of house and home. So when you guys come at going after the commissions, if you're going after commissions when they already think that we're money grubbing, guess what happens? They're going to shut a door and turn another eye and go, see, they're falling right into to stereotype. Why should I listen to them? You will not get the change that you want because of that.
Yeah.
Instead, what changes that is going, you know what? I do a damn good job for my client. You want to, here's what they say about me. Here's the brokers making a difference where we collected 15,000 surveys of direct beneficiaries that say agents are good, and here's the above and beyond that they do when it comes to what we do, right? Those are the things that we need to highlight. You want to go after the commissions, you don't go after it going, hey, give me my money, I need to have that. Instead, you go after it by explaining how those commissions and the plans not being commissionable then end up not being on the third party marketing tools, which means you can't quote it, which means the very steering that CMS says that they do not want to have happen is exactly what the carriers are doing, which then guess what happens? You have 14 Department of Insurance commissioners issue bulletins that say that's a problem. And CMS, do you not see this? You need to step to the plate, which then somebody else will say, well, but yeah, they got left out where that was, that they were told to stay in their lane. Well, Dean Cameron of Idaho turned around and said, no, I'm not standing in my lane. As a matter of fact, here's the bill, Washington, that I want you to go ahead and enact that says that I can go ahead and enforce the very rules that you don't want to enforce. And that is literally sitting at Capitol Hill today. So if you look at it, you fight fire with fire. You have to come at them with how they view us and shift it. If we play into the stereotype, nothing changes. That is how and why we are where we're at. Change the focus. If we associate with things that say, oh, we're money grubbing agents, guess what? It feeds a stereotype. We aren't going to win. If you change it, then they start to listen. That's how we've been able to do this. End of lecture. But I needed you guys to hear that because so many of you are so frustrated and scared about what's happening that you want to fix it. You need it fixed because you want to be able to go ahead and do what you love to do, which is your job. But you can't fix it if you don't shift how you're looking at it. Bad term. I choose to advocate on your behalf in DC. I have spent 20 years off and on with NABIP. I've spent the last 5 actively working on Capitol Hill. So much so that I started my own professional organization to do this and be a member of NAFA and NABIP. This is how we're moving the needle. So take that for what it's worth. You've got to get involved. There's strength in numbers. Instead of saying, hey, out of 120,000 people that sold 9 million applications this last year, think about that for a minute. 120,000 of us sold 9 million applications last year. What if we had just a sliver of that was actively a part of the professional organizations where we could stand on Capitol Hill and say, this is what we mean and this is what we do. There's strength in those numbers that then can get the attention that we need. So get active. It's not someone else's problem. It's yours. This is how it's done.
Well, and it's the classic of do what you can control and
Yep.
stop worrying about the rest, right? Do what you can control, which is to get involved, do things the right way. The rest, it will take care of itself if you're active. And the other thing is, right, carriers are not blind to this crap either. Like you saw one of the largest carriers term a heck of a lot of call centers this past year, and they're not letting those folks recontract. Even if,
Right.
I almost feel bad for some of the agents because they were probably they had no idea what they were doing in some of these situations, right? It was their leaders telling them, "Oh yeah, you can say all this stuff," but now they can't even get recontracted. So carriers are taking note, especially now that it's not grow at all costs. It's we only want the good business. You're
Yep.
going to see this stuff take care of itself in some respects.
So a couple of questions. Is CMS considering consultation fees for agents and brokers? Um, no, and here's why. It is actual federal law for Advantage and Part D that you cannot charge a fee. If they were to reverse the federal, there are also state level changes that would also have to be done. That is a fight on multiple levels that will not happen anytime soon. And depending on the state, some states say you can't even be appointed for any carrier to be able to charge fees. It's a messy, slippery slope, and candidly, I don't think that we need to go that route. I think that there are other ways that we can change the system and look at how we do business to provide value to, and bring awareness to what we do. So, Alina asked, so what do we do as agents? Bring visibility to what you do. Bring it to social media and post about here's what I do for a living and here's how I help somebody today. Did you know that this is what I do? Because eventually people see that. And the more that they see that, the better. Get involved with any of the professional organizations. Pick your flavor, volunteer. They all need help. Being able to, when somebody says, "Hey, you know what? I post regularly on social media that I'm compiling information to be able to give to industry, to regulators. What is your feedback on XYZ? If you can answer that, that helps. Anytime that you're able to help in those capacities, it's not all about just beating down a door in DC. Most people don't want to do that. But if you can help share the stories, that of the job that you do, and your clients will want to help you with that. That helps us when it comes to that. Um, the call center question. So the question is how do call centers continue to make outbound calls to Medicare beneficiaries when they didn't provide the required consent? This is the problem because you have two different types of products. You have your supplements and you have your advantage plans, right? We all agree. You have two totally different rules of engagement for both. So on the advantage side, you can't make the phone calls. On the sub side, you can all day. And what you have happening is you have auto dialers, which is the technology that calls 9 million people all at once. And you have agents who will go, well, let me just rapid dial their phone 10 times in a row until somebody answers. And then when they answer, yeah, they're going to be mad, but just say, well, at least you're not dead. And you know what? Listen to me for 5 minutes and let me sell you some life insurance and let me sell you some Medicare. That is literally how I have seen uplines try to teach it to their downline. It horrifies me. But when we go ahead and we look at the differences between, well, how can they do that? That's how. They're making the phone call under the premise of it being a med sup call, and then they're bait and switching. So is that fair? No. Is it legal? No. How do we get it to stop? Well, there is a campaign, there's a program that I rolled out 3 years ago. It's called Stop the Madness. It teaches you not to have them call and file a complaint with CMS. CMS does nothing with it. You have to have those complaints. You have to get the client on the do not call list, and then you must have them file a complaint with the FCC. If we got each beneficiary to just file one complaint with the phone number, date, and time of when that call happened, it would trigger enough issue on the FCC side to actually make the regulations happen. And yes, they can go after those that are overseas, but that's the thing is that we've all got to band together and do it instead of bitching about it and pointing fingers. You have to educate your client. Educate them on how to stop that madness and to take the power back by getting on the do not call list and filing the complaint with the FCC. Then we move the needle because the FCC in the complaint, Medicare is a service. So you pull the one for healthcare and Medicare, and there's a whole bucket for it. So when that report blows up in that sector, they'll start looking at it and now it becomes a real problem. That's how we fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
So that's the best I can say about it.
No, that I think we got a couple, we need that presentation comments. That's a great presentation.
On my YouTube, I teach it quarterly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, I was trying to scroll through here too. I can help tee you up. Yeah, I think we hit a lot of the one of the should we record in-home appointments since the client could possibly state something we didn't. I have agents that like to record. You need to let them know, hey, do you mind if I record this call or, this meeting? I would say that's a personal preference. It definitely does not hurt though, especially if you feel like this conversation is going awry.
Right?
It would not hurt. And then so we got that. I was trying to think too, do we have any other topics do we want to jump into unless you see another question I think we kind of hit the solicitation and the back to back. So we could
I was
answer
going to
the
say
last
some of
one.
these I've
Yeah.
already talked about, so I'm not going to go ahead and talk about them again. Um, but yeah, let's take a look and see what else we've got to chat about.
So I think the educational events and how
Yeah.
that's changing. I really like this. So it used to be that you could have an educational event and then a marketing event on its heels. And then
Uh-huh.
they went to this like 12-hour, right? You had to have this break between them. And that, to me, some of these are just hurdles actually for the person to get information, right? The beneficiary to get information. So I love to see the tide turning back to, hey, we want to empower the consumer. We don't want to put handcuffs on them. So the bottom line is now you can have an educational meeting and you can say, now the educational part's done, and then roll into a marketing event, right? So you can say, hey, we're done with the educational. I'm going to be in the back of the room for the next 3 hours or whatever you want to say. And I'm happy to answer any questions. We can have a one-on-one appointment. We can set that up. But we're ending the educational portion now. And I think that's great for agents. To me, if you're not taking advantage of this rule change and you want to do in-person events, I think this is the way to do them, in my opinion.
Yep. I usually say I clear the room first. So it's if you have other questions, happy to go ahead and answer those. If you want to go ahead and you're interested in, us finding a plan that fits you, please feel free to use the restroom. Let me go ahead and, get the room cleared up, and then, I'll be happy to go ahead and answer anything that you have. I'm not leaving. That usually, answers it. Um, did we go through compensation changes? We've talked about compensation pretty in depth. I don't think that we're going to go rehash all of that. Did the giveaway food limits change with this? No, they did not. But here's some clarification on this, because there's a few things that I don't think agents realize. Your carrier banner, your carrier tablecloth, and your carrier giveaways that say Humana, Anthem, Devoted, WellCare, United, whatever it is. All three of those are considered branding. So the giveaways that you give that have a carrier brand to them, they do not count towards your limits. They are a branding of that carrier. So you can use those in giveaway, you can use those in raffles and various different things, and it is fine. You can use those at educational events and sales events. Regardless, you can have multiple different tchotchkes from multiple different carriers out at one time, and that is also compliant. Again, giveaways, tablecloths, and banners. That's why when you see some people do events, they'll have pull-up banners from every carrier or the three big ones that they're working with. With your banners, you do need to go ahead and use current ones. So every October, you want to look to make sure that you have the correct ones. More and more, those banners now have your picture on them. They're personalized and they're benefit specific. So definitely take a look at those after October 1st. The other piece is that I believe it is Humana that is the only one that has carrier specific that will allow you to put your name and your phone number on them through their portal. Everybody else's are all are true generic pieces. But you can order those as well. Um, the food limit for sales events, if it's an advantage one, yes, you still have the $15 limit. If you are doing Medicare 101 dinners and things like that, where you are not talking about advantage plans or supplements, you're just going through the ABCs of Medicare, that does not have a limit to it. And it is an exempt.
So I've heard a lot of back and forth about that,
Huh?
but I'm glad you clarified that a Medicare 101 does not really, and most of the carriers will argue that point and say, no, it is still a $15 limit. But if it is a truly educational Medicare 101, that
If there is no carrier that is mentioned, there is no product that is mentioned, then it is exempt out of all of that, because it's no different than you doing a DOI 101 presentation. There's nothing to it.
yeah.
Um, that is per person per event, Christina. Um, so when we go ahead but it is something that's up for debate, and it's gone back and forth every year for several years now. but that is the latest. Now, your referral fees is the one that a lot of people get and have confusion on also. And referral fees to other agents is different also. Um, depending on your state. So, like in Ohio, you can, they have to hold, they have to have an insurance license for you to pay them the referral fee. Can't be outside of it. And if it is outside, then it's more of a gift and it's under $75 instead of the $100. So each state has different rules on all of that.
Interesting. All right. Well, we buzzed through a bunch of that questions. I don't know if a couple of the questions were actually about like the fair market value change for 2027. If you don't know who like what that is, you can Google it or look at emails from your upline because I promise they're in there.
Right?
Marketing language, I think, they are going to let us use superlatives, but you have to be able to prove that they are correct superlatives. Would you add anything there that was one of the changes that have come about?
I'm not a fan of this because there's a lot of people that like to boast and like to sound like they know what they're talking about and they don't. So when you have people who can say, oh, well, we have the largest network, prove it. So now you have somebody that's going to take your word for it that it's right when it not necessarily is. Not big on that. So technically you can. I don't think that I would.
I know, I was like, how do you prove that I'm not the best agent? But how do I also prove I am the best agent? Like it's
Right.
a lot of that's in the eye of the beholder. So maybe still stay clear of some of those things.
Yeah.
Um, I think you
Okay,
answered.
so Melissa
Yeah,
says, if the Medicare 101 script is from Devoted, yeah. Again, if you're using carrier stuff, it is not, regardless of whatever it is, the topic that you're using a carrier stuff. So now all rules apply.
yeah.
If you're not using carrier stuff and you're not talking product, then it doesn't apply. It's two totally different. I mean,
And I do think a lot of agents think they can only get their hands on like an educational, and I'm using educational presentation through a carrier, right? That's going to be branded with a United Healthcare Devoted or whatever.
almost every F line has one.
That's what I was about to
We have
say.
like six.
Look at your upline and the tools that they're giving you because most of the time, and frankly, the one that we use, in my opinion, like I've had carriers come to our events and they're like, this presentation is so much better than what
Mhm.
we have, right? And so use what your upline has.
Our 101 has built into it the difference of what are the different powers of attorney and why does your loved one need to know what that is and how do we go about getting one? It talks about also, all sorts of necessary things that because it's usually not just the person that needs the information, it's their loved ones also, especially now because the majority of people, and if you have a TikTok addiction like I do, you will find that there is a whole section of TikTok that is caregivers that are parenting their parents while parenting their kids as well. And
Yep.
they're stuck in this space where they don't know how to deal with any of it.
Yeah.
And they're searching for information and they don't know how to make that happen.
I'm going to give a shout out to an organization I've been a part of. It's called ACAP, Adult Children of Aging Parents. Um,
Hmm.
Also a great place to pick up leads, not just from the people that come, but from networking within so there's a financial planner, there's home health care people there. There was a transportation person there. But the tools that they give you, because I'm in that, I have an 8-year-old son and an 86-year-old father, right?
Okay.
And stuck in between. And thankfully, I know a lot about the space because I'm in this space,
Yeah.
right? When I talk to my friends, they have no idea where to go, what to do, a POA, you need to make sure you have a POA before they start losing their mind. I mean, I'm joking about it, but it's true. Like, so get involved in those kind of areas too. It can really help your business, but also help you figure out what are the needs in your community and how you can
Mhm.
fill them. All right.
So if you found this helpful and you are interested, I am going to be down in Miami. I am actually on one of the panels and we'll be down there taking meetings and having chats and all of the things down at the ACA Way 2026. Would love to see you there. They are doing a super cool ladies' night the night before, and they are also doing a really cool Medicare panel that is going to have a couple of the carriers on it to talk about the latest and greatest. So I hope to see you there. If you are, reach out. But I hope that you guys found this informative. Oh,
What are
cool.
the
Billy,
dates?
can't wait to see you there. Again, the dates are September 23rd and 24th, and it will be in Miami. So, Leigh, this was fun. Hope that we get to do this again. And I hope everybody has a great afternoon, and I'm sure I will see you all soon. So have a great one. Thank y'all.
All right. Thank you all. Take care.